Heather Mangrum, and this video is for my interpersonal communication project for my Human Services 508 class here at Liberty University. In this video, I'm going to discuss the definition of interpersonal communication. I will then discuss a little bit about myself, the overarching goal I have, and why accomplishing this goal is important to me. I will discuss my behavioral blend and my background and how that affects my overall communication. I will then discuss my current communication barriers and provide strategies and an action plan that formulates action steps with those strategies and by using the resources that we've used in this class. I will then close with a scripture that pertains to communication and or listening. So what is interpersonal communication? First of all, the definition of communication is the means of sending and receiving information in which a speaker speaks and a listener responds. Interpersonal communication is a type of communication that happens when the people involved talk and listen in a way that maximizes the presence of the personnel. Before I get started on my overarching goal, I'm going to discuss a little bit about myself. I am currently 29 years old. I was born and raised in Middle Tennessee. I am married to my husband of 10 years. I am a mother and a stepmother. I have 4 children. I have 3 girls and 1 boy. They are ages 12, 11, 8, and 10. I am currently a wellness coach at Centerstone. A wellness coach is like a case manager, and Centerstone is a nonprofit mental health facility. I graduated from Motlow State Community College with my associates in it was general studies. I took a lot of psychology classes and things like that in order to know what I wanted to do with my bachelor's. I ultimately decided to go for a bachelor's in psychology. I went to Middle Tennessee State University, where I graduated with that bachelor's. My dual minors were organizational communications and sociology. I'm currently pursuing my Master's of Arts in Human Services Counseling with an emphasis on criminal justice here at Liberty. Now we will go into discussing my overarching goal. My overarching goal is to improve in mindful listening, which means I want to listen to hear and not listen to react or speak. A lot of us think that we're listening when we're hearing what the person's saying, but that's not necessarily true. In order to really listen mindfully, you have to allow yourself to let go of everything else around you and solely focus on the listener and what he or she is saying to you. According to Stewart in our text, Bridges Not Walls, mindful listening is the mind and body working together to communicate. It focuses your attention solely on the listener, and it connects the listener and the speaker. Mindful listening includes the ability to interpret the entire message without bias. It allows you to retain the information for later use. It helps you keep your attention to the words that are being spoken to you. It helps you pay attention to your own words and to be sensitive to accuracy and interpretation. And it also encourages the speaker to speak from their heart. So why is this important to me? This is important to me on 2 different levels, both personal and professionally. Personally, I want to enhance my relationship with my husband by showing him that I'm truly listening to him. There are times that I am hearing him speak to me, but if he'll ask me a question about it, I'm like, I don't really know what you said, because I wasn't actually listening. I was doing something else, like playing on my phone or working on school. So I want to remind myself to always be mindful with my listening, even when it's my family. So that's one reason why it is important to me. Another personal reason is to be able to teach my kids how to listen mindfully. In today's age, we have phones and video games and all kinds of distracting things that prevent us from actually listening to people. And I see this in my children all the time. So I want to be able to teach them to let go of, your video games, your phone, or whatever you're using to distract you, and actually listening to not only what your mother's saying to you, but your teachers, your peers, someone in need. And I also think this will help them in the future with their job interviews and at their career, and helping their friends and things like that. Another reason is professional reasons that this is important to me, and the biggest one is to improve as a case manager. I've been working this job for about a year now, and I've been able to build trust with my clients, and I've had several of them tell me that they feel like I care, and then they've thanked me for helping them. So that's great, but I know that I need to improve my mindful listening with them as well, because there's been times that I've missed things. Sometimes our clients don't always say what their needs are outwardly. You have to really listen and put the pieces together of things that they're saying to know their needs, and that takes mindful listening. So that's another reason why this goal is important to me. Now I'm going to discuss my behavioral blend. In our text, How to Solve the People Puzzle, it talks about the DISC theory. DISC stands for 4 different personality traits: dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. According to this theory, I am an SC type, which means that I think logically, I do not respond well to hype or challenge, I tend to care for others and believe that people expect me to be sensitive and competent. I relate well to small groups, and I do not like being the center of attention, and that my want to do for others can sometimes end up in people taking advantage of me. All of this is true about me. It was very surprising to read this and really be able to relate to it. There are definitely things that I need to work on in my personality, such as negative characteristics are in being indecisive, shy, avoids conflict, and tends to be taken advantage of. I've learned how to overcome the being taken advantage of simply because with my clients, if I'm always doing what they want me to do for them, then they aren't becoming self-sufficient and we're not getting anywhere. Avoiding conflict, again, that's something I've been working on. That's difficult for me because I am shy, as you can probably tell in this video with my nonverbal cues of fidgeting and moving around, that I am very shy. So avoiding conflict is kind of bounces off that shyness, but again, I am learning how to deal with that. My positive characteristics are people-oriented, dependable, sensitive, and a loyal listener. Next, I'm going to discuss how my background influenced my communication patterns. I have both negative and positive things that have influenced my overall communication. I was the only child in my family for 5 years. I spoke to my mother about this, and she said she believes with me being around so many adults that my communication was more adult-like at a younger age. So I think this helped me develop my communication faster, if that makes any sense. I suffered with low self-esteem when I was a kid. I still do a little. I've learned to overcome it because of reasons, but suffering with low self-esteem is one of the reasons why I tend to avoid conflict and why I'm so shy. I have difficulty with eye contact and nervous talking, which can look as if I'm lying or unsure of myself. So those are things I definitely need to work on when communicating. Some of the positive things that have influenced my communication. Meeting my husband, he helped increase my self-esteem. He's always supportive of me and says nice things that build me up. He helped me feel valued, my opinions feel valued, and I was able to speak up for myself. And it just improved my communication by me getting out there and actually talking to people. The first being the first person to receive a college degree is part of my background in my family, being the first person in my family to receive a college degree. That increased my self-esteem, knowing that I did that even though other people in my family did not. And as I mentioned before, one of my minors was organizational communications, which has led to me learning about communication for the last 4 years. So that has definitely made an improvement. Also, my career as a case manager also has improved my overall communication and listening skills. It's gotten me out of my comfort zone. So that's definitely helped. My communication barriers are, as I mentioned, not listening mindfully. I try to listen mindfully, but sometimes that doesn't happen, so that is one of my barriers. Another barrier is not saying what I mean. I tend to beat around the bush and give off hints, especially with my husband, and that sometimes leads to confusion with him and could possibly lead to an argument, which then brings in using defensive communication. My low self-esteem and not being able to say what I mean can lead to defensive communication because I feel like I always have to defend myself. Instead of just talking calmly, I will get aggravated. Strategies to overcome my communication barriers. Practice mindful listening with simple tasks. Our book states for us to practice with tasks that we do mindlessly, such as washing dishes. So I plan to practice doing that. Take the time to understand what I'm feeling and directly say it instead of giving hints and being afraid to say what I mean. In Stewart's Bridges Not Walls, he says, in order to improve saying what you mean, you need to figure out what you're really thinking and feeling and then say it directly. So I plan to practice that. I plan to replace defensive communication with listening and asking the speaker if this can be discussed later if I'm not calm enough to hear. So I'm not going to argue with someone. I'm not going to try to defend myself every time that I feel that someone is poking at me or what they're saying is mean. Instead, I will take the time to listen, and if I feel like I can't listen without getting angry, then I'll ask if the discussion can be made at a later time. My action plan is to concentrate on the speaker, give my full attention to them, and form a connection. Pay close attention to nonverbal cues, both my own and the person I'm listening to. Avoid defensive communication and be mindful of flat brain syndrome. Use the steps in the talker-listener cards. Ask for clarity when I don't understand. Remind myself that I'm allowed to have an opinion just as others do. And learn to self-disclose appropriately. I also plan to read Why Don't We Listen Better with my husband and use the techniques provided to overcome communication barriers that we may have in our relationship. We've actually already started reading some of it together, but where I've had to get ahead in order to complete some of these things in this course, he's fell a little bit behind. So now that I've actually bought the book, we are going to sit and read it together. I also plan to use these resources in my supervision meetings to improve my team's communication. As in my job as a case manager, all the case managers on our team have a supervision meeting twice a month. I have discussed with my supervisor about these resources and how they may improve our communication as a team together with our clients and with other coworkers. My boss was actually very excited about this, and she ordered the Why Don't We Listen Better book instantly. So we should be getting started on using that resource in the next few weeks, and I am very excited about it. I'm going to close this video and my interpersonal communication project with a scripture that pertains to listening and speaking. It is James 1:19 through 20. So then, my beloved brothers, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man doesn't produce the righteousness of God. Even in the Bible, it tells us that we need to listen mindfully, and we need to listen to hear and not listen to speak. And that is enough for me to want to start learning to listen mindfully and being slower to speak. Well, thank you so much for listening to my video, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.